Gamebreaker TV.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to GuildCast, episode 21 for May 1st, 2012. You're watching Gamebreaker. I'm Gary Gannon, and today... Beta. Let's talk about some beta. It's over, but we got plenty to talk about. We've also got dev posts. This is crazy talk. Plus, we got your viewer questions. But first, from Gamebreaker.tv, the one, the only Mr. Scott Hawk. How are you, sir?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm well. How are you?
Hello, chap. Hello, mate.
Hello. How are you? Are you doing well?
I just want to do my British accent. It's terrible. Then I'll go to my Australian. It'll be a disaster.
Well, it's better than the Australian, governor.
I've got a Foster's and an alligator.
Oh.
And a cat. And from Massively.com, the one, the only Elizabeth Clare. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. How are you? How's your you got the DTs? Are you still shaking?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. Just trying to log in. Keep hitting F5. Hope it's just going to come back.
Keep hoping.
And also from Massively.com, it's Richard Procopio.
Hello, how are you?
Hello.
You can still load up the login screen and listen to the music. So.
Are you guys doing that? Are you just like staring at it? Just like...
A little bit.
Just kind of reminiscing, cuddling a little char plushie or something? Is that what you're doing, Elizabeth?
Yeah, that's what Elizabeth's doing.
You're totally doing
It's
that.
the only way
you?
to get through it, yeah.
That's it. Just take some
I'm gonna
Tylenol.
sit here and hug my Ritlock until it's all better.
Ritlock. Gotta fix something. I'll just keep moving on. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about the beta weekend. Hopefully, all of you got a ton of time logged in on the Guild Wars 2. I guess I should ask. You know what I should ask? All right, let's start with you, Scott. I'll say, did you do anything but play Guild Wars 2?
Was there anything else to do other than play Guild Wars 2 this weekend? I don't think there was
I
there?
hope you fed your child, maybe, or something like that.
No, my wife took care of that.
Oh, perfect wife.
Taken care of.
Feed the child. That's it. How about you, Elizabeth? Did you do anything else or did you just pretty much lock yourself in and play?
My power went out for about 5 hours, true story. Like, my power went out when I was due to stream, so at that point, I was not playing Guild Wars 2, but I was thinking about it really hard.
You were thinking about it really hard. How about you, Richie?
I ran out of duct tape Saturday afternoon, so the kids got free for a lot of the Sunday.
Damn those
Unfortunately.
kids. Those pesky kids.
They have sharp teeth.
They have sharp teeth, sharp claws.
What are you going to do on launch day? Man, just like, I don't know. Just duct tape their mouths closed with a bunch of Skittles and goldfish. All shaft it and call it a day.
Chew slowly, kids.
Chew slowly, Shaftnet. So this was like the first time that the majority of like the public actually got in the game and got to play, and we've been kind of, you know, really waiting and anticipating to see what the public's reaction was going to be. Rich, I'll start with you. I mean, what have you seen so far as far as public reaction on forums and comments and things like that? How are people feeling about it?
A majority of the people are super psyched. A lot of people said, hey, it lived up to the hype and even more, and just a lot of people are even more excited now than ever before. Obviously, there's now some issues that have been brought to light, which I think we'll discuss later, but in general, it's very, very positive. People are big fans of what they saw.
What are you hearing, Elizabeth?
Well, I think that anytime you open up the player base as widely as you did, you're going to get a lot more diversity of definitely seeing that with a lot more of kind of lukewarm or neutral feedback, or even some negative from people who just nothing about the game worked for them. And I think that's
probably coming from that player base that got something put out today for them. I don't know.
It's entirely possible, and like, people have to understand that negative reviews from people who don't like the game style are an okay thing. Like, not everybody's going to like the same game, but for the most part, yeah, everyone's been really positive about the experience, so it's been awesome.
Editor-in-Chief of Gamebreaker TV, Scott Hawks. What are you thinking? What are you seeing? What are the forums saying? What are the comments on the posts?
We've had the most fun ones have been some of the negative ones where people said the game's terrible. I couldn't log in this weekend. It's like, how's the game terrible? The vast majority, especially like the guys in the Gamebreaker community on the forums and so on, have been really positive. Had a great time this weekend. I saw one poll on Reddit of like 7,000 people, which was overwhelmingly positive. Which was,
wow.
Reddit can be quite critical. And so being positive from there, I mean, that's good going. Really is. The majority of people came away really happy. What most of them said was, so it's going to be next week, the next one then, isn't it?
Yeah, not so fast.
Anytime. It's May.
What are some
of the May event.
What are some of the high points you guys are seeing? Like anybody commenting on specific areas overall where people are just extremely happy?
Oh yes, it's 3 letters. WVW.
WVW's got everybody excited, huh?
Oh yeah.
Not projecting at all.
I am projecting intensely, but no, just the fact that we had, what was it? It was the 3 of us and Larry and 60 of the Gamebreaker community mob went onto one map Sunday night for a 4-hour slaughter-thon of fun and frolics, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Did you pawn noobs? Did you run into a Thene? Did you run into a Thene and pawn the best paladin in the world?
We ran into someone else.
Yes, we
didn't
did.
we?
Who'd you run into? I don't even know this. Really?
We ran into Jesse Cox.
Oh, Jesse. I actually wonder what he's thinking of it, because he was a little skeptical of the game early on a show with Mike B. Did you get to talk to him, or did you just face roll him?
He's done a review. No, we were too busy kicking his head in, so we couldn't get around to asking him anything. We're like, what are you saying? And as we were standing on his head, it's just hard to hear. It's muffled.
Muffled, yeah.
But he did a review, and he had some criticisms, but I think actually came away from it quite positively from what I've seen. I didn't read the whole review. I was just been busy today. But no, we were doing the live stream of it, and we had people from his live stream spying on ours, and people from our live stream spying on his, and giving sort of like information to each other on our troop movements and so on. It was just a great time. We had really good fun.
What was the Gamebreaker crew actually like? Kind of, where were you guys heading up? Were you doing some of the side stuff that pertains to WW? You were right in there up. In the front? What were you guys doing?
We were sieging forts and castles and towers. We were taking them out. The coolest part of the whole thing, and Scott's talked about this a bit, is we learned that there was this one heavily fortified tower that they just put a ton of arrow carts along the top. And every time we got close, we would bring our 60 people up. I mean, it just was raining arrows. We would just melt. And we stayed there for a while, just, unable to make any progress. And we eventually had to, figure out a way to, get some of our catapults in there, hit it from 2 different directions. And it was just, we finally overcame these arrow carts. And it was just such a great moment.
Take one to the knee?
I took several to the
several.
There were many knees.
And the head.
Carpet of arrows all down the body.
There were knees left on top of walls behind us by the time we finished. Yeah, it got crazy. It was basically, what was it? At one point, I said that the outlook for the weather would be pointy, because as soon as you entered an area, this rain of arrows would come flying down on top of it. It was mental.
Were we triumphant? I missed it. I'm like a fan right now. I just want to hear all about this. You telling me about the WW, because I missed the big brouhaha.
We went in. I went into, because people get mistaken and think Eternal Battlegrounds is the only map you can go to, and forget there's 4 of them. So what I did, being a sneakster, I took the portal from Lion's Arch to the blue Borderlands and had a look around. And me and a few people grabbed the central Temple of Storms, which is a storm generator that if you own it can damage the opposition, which is cool. And then more and more people started to come in, so Richie and Elizabeth and Larry, and then all of the 2 Gamebreaker guilds stormed in, and we just went around and took everything. And I mean, the entire map turned colour by the time we'd finished. So we rocked the weekend, have no doubt.
How did the servers hold up? So that's something I know a lot of people were worried about. So this is the first major beta. How did they hold up? Elizabeth?
Everyone's got kind of varying reports as far as like how they're they actually were able to handle and experience the game between effects and having just a ton of people. The servers for World versus World seem to be handling things pretty okay for us. I mean, weren't they, Scott?
Yes. It got better as the weekend went along. There were some strains. I mean, our server was full 10 minutes after the game went officially live. I mean, they actually opened up the servers an hour and a half before. So there was some strain on the servers, and it just got better and better. They did a fix for a few hours, brought the servers down, implemented a fix, and everything seemed to just get smoother as the weekend went along, which I was just impressed by. The way that they were able to adjust things, you could tell the game that they were reacting really well to what was going on in the game, and include. I mean, the problem with WVW initially was Darkhaven, which is the realm, the world we were on, was so busy that we got in and the WVW filled up, and we just dominated the map early. So the other two servers just never had a shot at it because we just kept them pinned in their own spawn area, and that was a problem. And then Friday night, was it? They switched the servers up, and then suddenly it was a different game. And we were actually behind, and it was much more back and forth, and it changed the whole WVW experience completely. So the servers got better as it went along, and also the way they managed to change things up as the weekend went on was really impressive how responsive they can be.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, sure, they had crews there 24, not 7, but, you know, overnight, I'm sure they were rotating crews, just adjusting stuff on the fly. So you could actually feel when they were... Did you notice any, like, hot fixes or any major patches, like, that went on during that time?
They logged us out a couple different times. One was like 30 minutes, one was a couple hours, and like Scott said, every time we got back in, things felt much better. Each time there was an improvement. Certain areas, had felt a little bit strained more. I felt for some reason Lion's Arch, the FPS went way down in that section for some reason. But again, a lot of optimization still has to go through, and we're going to see more and more of the power being run by your graphics card rather than the CPU. So, I'm very optimistic from what I saw, and I love the fact how responsive they were, and things did get better.
Now, also with servers, we got to see how the overflow system, which is... Should I use the word revolutionary? I'll probably get flamed for using that word. I'll probably say it's kind of, but I'll get flamed for that. Why are you afraid, Elizabeth? You afraid? I'd say.
Well, it's a great idea. I think people are starting to get a little sensitive about some of the closer to being interpreted as hyperbolic speech that is being used about the game, and I don't think it's really necessary because this game is very strong on its own standards. Actually talking about the overflow servers, they had a huge problem with grouping on servers that actually I tracked down a post on the forums. The devs have said that they're already very aware of that and they're going to work on fixing it for the live launch. So,
and what you're talking about there is that a lot of people, I think, noticed that there was no actual way to guarantee that you went to the same server as your party members, correct?
Correct. Which obviously is a big problem in a social MMO or a game that's trying to promote user interaction and grouping as heavily as this is. But they are aware that it's a problem and they're working on... They had a couple solutions that people could try during the beta that worked with varying degrees of success, but that's something that they are working on.
But don't we sort of think that? Don't we all sort of think that that's like, hey, it's just not done and in yet? I mean, I don't think that's going to be that's not going to be, as I call it, the BioWare dope moment. Like things just got away from them because they forgot some things for launch. But this seems like one of those things. Is hey, it's beta, it's just not working yet. But it's obviously, I mean, I expect us to see this fixed before it launches.
Well, one of the things that was said was that one of the fixes was if you all went into, say, a city where you're all on the same map, and then the leader of your group went to another map first, then you should all go to the same one, which didn't always work. However, what it said was that the game was dealing with that and keep them together at times better. So obviously there's a system in there for that. It just wasn't working. Mm-hmm. So as I said, it's not something where the overflow system is intended to break it from you being in the same party. But what it is there is it just doesn't quite. It's not quite working as intended at the moment.
Scott, I pre-purchased this game. It's not bad. I'm going home. I'm not playing this dumb game. I'm out of here. Expect me to pay for this crap? You expect me to pay and the overflow servers don't work? It's beta.
I know.
You might be
I'm
paying
sorry.
for beta. I'm sorry. Yeah, you are paying for beta, but you know what? It's still beta. Now I know there's. What's that?
I was going to say, it is quite amazing how many people really didn't want to come to terms with that over the weekend, where it was like, yes, the servers are full, which is causing a knock-on effect problem with having to use the overflow servers a lot, and there's a bug within the overflow servers which is causing this issue. So there are a few issues, because it was beta, that were compounding upon each other and causing issues. But and the amount of people who didn't ever look at the beta forums at all weekend, and there was the amount of oh look, there's this and this, oh I've changed my graphics card settings or blah blah blah, it's not working well. On the beta it told you that there's a problem that it was CPU locked, and there was also a problem where it wasn't putting the game as, it was putting the game as low priority.
Yeah, that's
and that was causing an issue.
Yeah, that was another issue that a lot of people had. First of all, Arcturios in the chat room, yes, you can have my stuff. You happy? Okay. But yeah, performance in general, I know Josh Allen from Gamebreaker TV and Legendary, he had that problem where his system seemed to be stuck at low priority, and he couldn't get it out of it, even if he changed it to high. You had it as well, Richie?
Yeah, I had the same issue. Yeah, it's funny. I didn't notice it until I saw that Josh was having the problem. Then I checked. I'm like, oh man, I've got that too. That's so annoying. You set it to high, and it went right back to low.
Yep.
And did it actually change the setting, or did it just seem like it was on high but nothing visually changed?
I would set it to high, and I wouldn't notice any improvement, and then I would look again to go set it, and it would be back to low automatically.
That was actually happening in the last beta as well, I remember.
Yeah.
And do we have confirmation that that's a bug, or is that possibly something that they trying to? Do other people not have this problem at all?
They're aware of it on the forums. They are aware that that was happening.
So, no, but my question is, were there definitely some people that didn't have this problem, or were they forcing you down to low? Was everyone forced to low? Just maybe they were testing at low?
Not sure.
No, I don't think so. I'd say it was just...
You know what I'm saying, right? I'm wondering, like, was
bugs.
everyone being forced to low, or do we even know? Like, is it confirmation that it was a bug, or were they pushing everybody to low just to test it at that level? We don't really know, do we?
I don't think we know. I never checked mine because I never had any performance issues whatsoever. So I never thought to look.
I didn't. I played about. I got about, I don't know, about 8 hours clocked. I know not much. I know you guys, but yeah, I didn't have any problems either. So, all right, let's talk about classes for a minute. What classes did you guys roll? Scott, what'd you roll?
You gotta admit it, man. just own up, man.
I rolled a Guardian again.
Oh my god, again, bro? Really?
I'm sorry. Look, Friday...
I wish we had
I'm going to explain. Friday, I basically spent all evening sorting out the first Gamebreaker guild, and then Saturday afternoon sorting out the second Gamebreaker guild because the first one was full. So I was hanging around, and I thought I'll just be in something comfortable. So I rolled the Guardian.
You didn't even get you didn't get slightly enticed when you got to this screen and you're like, look at all these choices. Wow.
I did play other classes. I played the Mesmer, the Elementalist. The Elementalist blew me away. I've got to say, I had so much fun right off the bat with an Elementalist. They're just... Oh, it's crazy. Just the fire. I start off on the fire, and it just looks awesome. When you got a Phoenix flying in a straight line and causing damage to everything he runs into, that just looks great. And then you start looking at some things you can do. The water with the utility and the support and the healing on it. Just great stuff. It's such a beautifully balanced.
I was looking forward to the Scott Hawks Chronicles of an Elementalist, but now we're gonna get Guardian's Tale Part 96 coming all week.
I'm not. I'm retired from Tales until the next one.
No more Tales?
I'm not this time.
But
no,
you
have
Dub v Dub Jesse Cox tales to tell.
Oh yes, I've got plenty of those. not that it was like ridiculously fun, like driving people into the dirt as we ran across the ground like heavily armored locusts. But
come on, you enjoyed it a little bit. You could admit it. You're like, that's Jesse Cox and His face is being stopped in the ground. He's throwing dirt at me right now.
No, not once did I say, okay, can somebody find out which class Jesse Cox is so I can find him and go after him? Anybody, please.
Oh, so Scott Hawk's got the entire Gamebreaker guild to go after Jesse Cox. He's a griefer. That's what I just heard. It's confirmation.
Yeah.
How about you, Elizabeth? What did you roll?
I rolled an Elementalist and a Guardian again and spent a fair bit of time on those. I spent a lot of time on my Mesmer, and I rolled a Necromancer, which I hadn't really played around with before, and I really enjoyed it. I actually ended up kind of dragging Richie through some of the upper-level Norn area with that and doing a lot to combat.
You carried
so
him,
it was
basically.
super fun.
You carried him.
I was carried.
She's like, come, I want to check this thing out. I'm like, well, I'm like level 7. I'm like, where are we going? She's like, oh, look, I don't know, level 20 zone, you know. And the funny thing is, like, anytime anything aggroed me, I would die instantly, and she would always run like 50 yards ahead of me and have to come back. I'm like, why don't you stay with me?
Richie,
I could dodge them. I figured you could.
Richie, I told you why. It's because you suck.
That's right. That's right.
Kidding. It's a big troll fest today. It's all out of love. What did you end up rolling, Richie?
I played Necro for half the beta, and then I rolled an Elementalist, and I'm like what Scott said. I mean, I'm blown away by that class. The Elementalist is so much fun.
I have to try it. I didn't try it. I rolled one.
It's very diverse. It's very fun. Awesome. I just have to say, Conjure Lightning Hammer, best skill in the game. You summon a lightning hammer for yourself. You get to put a second lightning hammer on the ground, and it replaces your first 5 skills with holy cow, awesome big mega death axe power. It's just awesome.
So the big hammer that you put on the ground is what you actually control, and it smashes people?
No, well, no. You get one in your hand. It basically replaces your weapon, and you can smash things with this huge lightning axe. And you have 5 different skills, but you get to make a copy of it, and anyone in your party can, or anybody that's around, can pick it up, and they get to replace their skill bar with it too. It's awesome.
That sounds awesome. I rolled a Char Engineer, and that's all I played. That's all I played this time, and I loved it. What was really interesting, and I was playing, and Shafton came by and he looked, and he's like, you know, it's really interesting, and it is true. It's like there's one thing that I think a lot of people could possibly, tell me what you guys think, not overlook, but sort of almost miss, is that you could roll a character, you could start playing the class, and unless you actually like switch weapon groups to try the other weapon set, you might be like, man, I really don't like this class, but it really changes so much when you just switch out a weapon. Did any of you guys experience that?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely, it's one of the best things about the game. I keep saying that phrase, don't I? One of the best things about the game is you really need to play it to learn it. You can't sit and read it off a website to get the feel for it. Yes, you'll get an idea of the different abilities are available, but it isn't until you play it and put yourself in those situations and really feel what it can do, depending on what you've got in your main hand or not, that you learn it. So every class I played over the weekend, even though I got some good timing on them and really enjoyed them, everything felt like I was scratching the surface. There was always more there, and I could always tell, I really want to try this other weapon and see what that does. And I can't think of a class other than the Ranger, but that's unfair because that was the last beta and I need to play it again. There isn't one where I haven't had one weapon and enjoyed it and then tried something else and been surprised by what it can do. Put a Mesmer with a greatsword. I mean, who'd have thought, like, your Mesmer, you think in your caster, put a two-hander in a Mesmer's hands and see what happens. It's fantastic. I just ran around with that and just had a ball. And it's not until you try all those and really put yourselves in different situations with all those weapons that you get a good feel of what your profession can really do.
Yeah, I mean, when I started out my engineer, I was, you know, obviously with double pistols and startup, and then I was like, all right, let me see what this is like with a rifle, and I didn't like it as much at all. I just didn't like the way it felt, and I didn't like the speed of it, and stuff. Went right back to pistols, and I was like, all right, I'm liking this again. And a lot of people had the opposite effect. Mm-hmm. So anybody, do you guys, has this beta kind of gotten you closer to nailing down what you're going to roll at launch, besides Scott, who's going to roll a Guardian?
Now it's up to seeing if anything else can beat the Elementalist. That's the front runner for me right now.
Elementalist on the front runner?
The only downside is that seems to be, you know, with all the polls on Reddit and stuff, it seems to be what is most popular in terms of, you know, what people, and I kind of like being the thing that no one likes being, so that's the only hesitation I have, but it's so much fun. Yeah.
He's a Guild Wars hipster already. Game's not even launched.
no cloth hat on.
How did the whole event system feel with so many people now running around in the world and it being so populated?
I again really enjoyed it. What was great about this weekend was really getting to play it with a big bunch of people. It made such a difference. It really did. I mean, I enjoyed it before anyway last time, but when you really got a great big group of people, you really saw that sort of on-the-fly community sort of helping each other out in action. The way that being able to revive people around you actually forms groups naturally as you're going along is amazing, and it's another one of those why isn't this done by everybody? Because you're running around and you'll see people stop in the middle of the fight just to help somebody else up. And it's weird to see in MMOs that happening. You know, you're used to people saying, "Get out of my way, that's mine," and that doesn't happen in Guild Wars 2. So you've got these big events going on, and yeah, you're getting involved, and you're all jumping on mobs, and there's fireworks going off to the point that you're rubbing your eyes and you can barely see anything. But you'll see that little marker showing somebody's down in the middle of that huge pool of fire, and you'll see 3 or 4 people suddenly just get down, get them back up, and get back into it. It was a great time.
And it's kind of funny because they kind of almost trained you in the PvE side of things as well, because you got some of those quests that you have to do that. And when you revive, I don't know about you guys, but I came across a couple of things, and I had to revive a couple other NPCs. And as soon as I revived them, they actually started helping me with the quest, and it was almost one of the only ways I could do it. So it's like, it's clever use of breadcrumbing, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of. Very much.
Yeah, the game felt a lot different to me this time around, just getting in there and seeing so many people running around the world. You know what was really funny? I have to say, every MMO that I've played in recent time, Tara, the conversation in the chat room is usually about another game. And Guild Wars was one of the first MMOs that I've played in a really long time where the chat conversation was, I'd say, like 95% about Guild Wars. Did you guys see the same thing? Did you notice that?
Not only was that, but it's like every single live stream show I do, it doesn't matter what game it is, people are talking about Guild Wars 2 in my chat. It's just unbelievable. So yeah, I agree with you. Everyone was talking about this game, how to do this. Isn't this awesome? Did you see this? Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
And there's another reason that happens is this is a modern MMO that really doesn't hold your hand. In a lot of the way that it goes, to a certain extent, it helps you along. But there are a lot of things where you've got to figure it out a bit for yourself. And people are in chat asking how to do things, and I like that because I like fostering that sort of like communication by being supportive to each other, rather than feeling, because everybody to some extent was a noob. You hadn't got people asking questions, going, "Oh, you're a noob," and all the rest of it, and Baron's chat going on. You really hadn't got that very much. So people are actually helping each other out a lot, and also, of course, just giving feedback like, "This is cool, isn't it? What do you think about this?" And yeah, that's cool. So yeah, it was really fun. It was nice to see a chat that was actually about the game rather than something somebody had seen on 4chan or something like that.
Scott, along those lines, don't you think, though, I mean, I totally agree with you that we need less hand-holding in MMOs, and it was cool to actually try to figure things out. But do you think that there is room for them to put a little bit more into a tutorial or a little bit more explaining some of the base mechanics? I mean, because I watched a live stream show of a fairly, popular, gamer, where they were obviously not up on everything going on with Guild Wars 2. They were, like, confused. I mean, they didn't understand. What is this downstate thing? How does the teleporting work? And how do I go? There's just a lot of these basic things that at least there can. I don't know. I thought they could do a little bit more with there were some players that.
There were some things. There were some specific things like the one that I cited in the article yesterday was if you're doing trade skills, you don't need to have a gathering skill. But you do need to have the correct gathering tools and have them equipped Now, those gathering tools aren't for sale by the trade skill vendors where you'd get the trade skills. So there's a lot of people saying, where am I going to get these? I found mine on a merchant standing next to an apple cart in the northeast quadrant of a city. And I'm like,
they're going to fix that, by the way.
Yeah, they are. They've already said that they realise that may be being a little bit confusing. They're going to make them more easily available around. So there are some things specific things where perhaps. But I love the fact that I could go and explore not just the city but also the game itself. That I wasn't being told how to do everything, and I like being lost in something at times.
See, I'm the
I don't
same
have a
way.
problem with that.
I had a few of those moments as well where I just could not figure certain things out. And when I figured them out, it was sort of like I felt a little bit of sense of achievement. I was like, wow, this is cool. I figured this out. Or I asked somebody. There are a few things that are a little odd, right? Like I couldn't figure out how to get out of Dub v Dub. Like, I was like, where do I leave a match? Like, I had to go. I had to do something. Like, there was somebody at the door, and I was like, how do I get out of a match? And I was like, I had to log out because I couldn't figure out how to leave a match, right? So I think there's a couple little things like that maybe are a little hidden. I still don't know. How the heck do you leave a match?
You use your hero pain and then go.
Yeah, or if you go back to the waypoint, it should be right next to an Asura portal.
Mm-hmm. So you just
Either
use
one.
H, and then there's a PvP tab, and you just go,
Sounds a
That's
little
it.
buried. So little things like that, but I don't know. I'm enjoying not having my hand held as well, just trying to figure some stuff out.
Best message I got the entire beta was from my dad, who was trying to figure it out, and he whispers me and he goes, I managed to die with 0 gold, so I can't afford the waypoint. What do I do?
There's a fix to that. I think Elizabeth knows it.
Do I?
Yeah, you told somebody in chat today because they were like, "Doesn't this game need a Hearthstone?" And you're like, "Nope."
Oh yeah. So he had a thing where he was just stranded somewhere and he didn't have enough gold to get somewhere, so he was able to go to World versus World, be in the Mists, and then use the Asura portal to go to Lion's Arch, and then use Lion's Arch to use an Asura portal to his hometown, which was confusing. If you're dead, there's actually not a cost associated with resurrecting, which I think your dad found out, right, Richie?
Right, but it doesn't say that. It still looks like it costs, and he was actually just looking. Gold does not equal the amount that this costs, but if you click on it, it actually works.
Right.
I think the thing that struck me most about the way people responded to certain things was how trained we are in certain ways because of other games.
Yes.
We're walking in and just expecting things to be, and when it's not, some people are freaking out. And it's like, hold on, this is supposed to be telling me how to do this automatically, and where's my thing that flashes up on the screen to tell me when to hit the button? And it doesn't do that. And people... It's an adjustment to make. It's definitely an adjustment, but to me, again, it's that's the way to go. And believe me, running out of cash when all of your armor's broken and you're standing there naked, it gets chilly in Holbrook.
It does.
It does.
Very chilly in Holbrook.
When you've had your backside handed to you, because your armor automatically disappears off you if it's broken. And I was running around and I was a sight.
In your knickers.
You broke my pants! You broke my pants!
Yeah, I think we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that I think previous MMOs have kind of trained us to think about a little bit later in the show, especially when it comes to difficulty. I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. Something I didn't really get a chance to look at was the cash shop available?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm assuming you all took a look at it. Anything? Tell me a little bit about it. Anything you guys liked, didn't like? What did you see?
Well, I didn't like that I could basically spend 500 gems and hit level 45 as soon as I spent them, which I thought was a bit... No, I'm joking. People...
I was you totally had me for a second.
You said he was trolling night.
Oh, it was. You totally got me now.
I paid and I won.
Yes. People were really freaking out about the gem store before. I'm sorry, I'm really bad. About the gem store. But there was like you can get a 50% XP boost for an hour if you buy like one thing. It just didn't feel overpowered at all, though. I mean, I bought one and used it just to have done it, to see how it felt. It wasn't spectacularly, different, to be honest.
Do you think it was worth the cost, though, that it was associated with it? Could you see yourself buying it?
You mean for actual cash? No.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because obviously right now what you purchased was not, you didn't have to fork over any cash. So.
But I wouldn't have to anyway. I'd just do it in gold because I'm going to make a fortune on the trading post.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, you're already gaming the system. You already got it down. You got your spreadsheets out, your charts.
Not me. Never. So I actually ended up using most of my gems for a server transfer because there was a little hiccup associated with former press accounts because I was already assigned to a home server. And since I wanted to play with Gamebreaker and the crew, I actually used all but 200 of my gems to transfer servers. and then I spent the rest on converting it into gold so that I had extra cash for running around, and then at the end of the weekend I ended up converting all my extra cash back into gems so that I could buy dyes and other things. So that was fun.
Did you see anything in there that you kind of could see the community grumbling about? Because this is kind of like, something that a lot of people are worried about, is the pay-to-win kind of scenario.
I think people are going to grumble if they want to grumble, but there really was nothing that I saw that I felt I would be at a disadvantage if I didn't shell out money for it. There was just nothing.
Yeah, and they took the megaphone out. A lot of people were all up in arms about screenshots they saw about the megaphone, which would allow you to broadcast a message to your server, basically. That wasn't there. A lot of cosmetic stuff. The one thing that I didn't love is you could buy a die pack, right? And it gives you 3 random dies in it. And so it's kind of like, if you want to unlock all the dies, you got to keep buying these random packs, and you're probably going to get duplicates. But I also didn't test it specifically, but I've heard that the unlocking dies is character-based and not account-based. Is that true?
That is true from my experience.
Because that's rough. I don't know.
That's also rough because I actually checked this today because someone else brought it up. In the die post from admittedly and fairly a year and a half ago, Kristen Perry said it was all account-wide, which it no longer is, but they never exactly said that, which would have been nice.
And especially seeing it, again, this is something not everybody knows. Any of your trade skill stuff, if you right-click it in your bag, if like you got copper ore, if you right-click it, you can actually automatically deposit it into your bank from your bag, and just keep doing that. So if you pick up like leather or copper, right-click on it, deposit to, and it's in your bank. And if you go to your bank, you can't see it in the first screen, but there's another slot, and if you click on that, all of the possible trade materials are listed, and it shows you which ones that you've got, and then you can just take them out and use them to trade skill. But dyes weren't one of those things.
Everybody's like, all three of us are just like, really?
Yeah, really.
I knew that the collections tab existed, and that it was essentially crafting material storage like we see in Guild Wars 1, but I didn't know that there was that little automatically send to.
Yeah, I didn't know that
awesome.
either. That would be awesome.
Scott coming out with the knowledge bat.
Seriously?
Coming out this week.
There you go. Scott Hawks. So needless to say, I'm sure everybody cannot wait for another week end within, I don't know, a week or two, right? This weekend, maybe? No. I don't know. ArenaNet's only said they have promised at least one per month, right? That's the schedule we're looking at.
I don't know if they promised, but they said...
Yeah, I think they said they were aiming for one a month. There's a little bit of different verbiage.
I heard they said promised. I heard they signed it in their own blood.
They said one a month, though that might change, and it could be, but maybe not, and we'll see. So I think that's definitely... I'm sure that means 3 a month. That's what it means. It's 3 a month.
Did you guys? I'm wondering. I think Scott. I don't know. I haven't confirmed this with you, but I'm gonna guess. Yeah, I know you're a huge crafter. Did you get to do a lot of crafting? That you just blew our minds with how our bags and.
I got to do some, not as much as I'd liked, but some.
How did it feel at the lower levels? Did it feel like it was actually worth it?
I think there might be a little bit of tuning when it comes down to. I think it was on par with what I was basically picking up out in the world. Sometimes not quite to the same standard, but it was certainly useful. It wasn't a case. And one of the things I think people were a little frustrated with, you do get like leveling XP along with your trade skill XP, but that wasn't working properly either. So people were trying to level up, people who were just wanting to trade skill and level up that way, it wasn't happening for them, and they thought that wasn't going to be part of the game, and they've come out and said, oh no, actually sorry, that's got to be fixed. You should have been getting experience as well. Along with your trade skill experience, you should have been getting regular experience. So there are still things that need to be fixed with it. The actual, I think the actual UI is great. It works a treat. The way that I still love the way it speeds up every time you put a big stack in. So the first one's slow, and then it just rips up in speed. So you're not sitting there for 30 minutes at a time waiting for your ore to finish smelting. And there's a lot of. I thought it's a very robust system. It's not that groundbreaking But what it is, it's a very solid crafting system, and what it has got is a cracking trading post to go along with it. The trading post works a treat.
It's a cracking cracking.
By the way, if you pop over to Guild Wars 2 and take a notepad, and when you do a search in that, you've only got to type in one word and it'll give you a list of all the potential things that could be you're searching for, with links on each of them for you to go over to check which one you actually want. And it's easy. It gives you which ones are selling the most, like the most popular sales, the most expensive sales, and you can get all of this information and it's superb. So for trade skill people who want to make money from that, your trading post is there and waiting for you. They might be have to touch a few things up in the trade skills itself with sort of item quality and so on, but that flow through from making it to selling is there and ready. It's really, really good.
Anybody else get any crafting in there?
I didn't do a lot myself, but I did find out about the different bags that you can make through the different professions, and they're really awesome in terms of, like, there's one that has, like, it's like a crafting bag, and, you know, other MMOs have that kind of thing, but you can kind of put anything you want in it. It just prioritizes crafting materials when you throw things in there. So you can actually use the other spaces for anything you want, but it actually, like, prioritizes it. But the one that I really liked is the reinforced safe box. And that's like a bag, and anything you put in there, it will not put those items on a vendor list when you're going to sell your items. So kind of like protects them from
that's actually a nice little feature.
Brilliant.
That's great. Because that happens to everybody in MMOs.
That's right. Yeah, I thought that was a great feature.
I'm trying to keep one eye on the chat room because I know after post beta that so many people have tons of questions that we're probably not going to go over. But one question I keep seeing over and over is there going to be a character wipe? I don't think we have an official word, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say I would think we are going to have a character wipe. We've seen it. That's what we've had happen in every kind of all the press betas. I'm going to say yes. Do we have any official word on that though?
Not that I would swear to, but I would put heavy money on it.
I would as well. I wouldn't expect your character to be there for the next one.
Yeah, between now and launch, certainly, but you know, they didn't specifically mention anything between beta weekends.
Scott, you have to start Guardian Therapy tomorrow. I'm sending you to Guardian Therapy. So.
I knew you were going to say that.
So on the next beta...
I've already picked out the design of the next Guardian I'm going to make.
God.
Save it for launch.
I didn't do an Asura Guardian yet.
So I'm sure everybody's got like somewhat of a story. Let's go around and tell story time. Like, what was kind of just your high point of beta? I know I'm putting everybody on the spot. Elizabeth, you look like you're totally got to be thinking, so I'll leave you for a while. Scott, I mean, you already told us about Jesse Cox and stomping his face in. But
that wasn't the best part of WVW, though. The best part of WVW was the guilds and everybody coming together. I'm going to sound like a complete, like, you know, whatever, but looking for a cheap applause. But the Gamebreaker community were fantastic this weekend. I chatted like for ages. I chatted for ages with those guys.
The Gamebreaker community, because you guys are awesome.
Honestly. They were great. People were chatting. Nobody got, you know, intrusive, or nobody got like pests. Like there's no pests or anything like that. People just nice, helped each other out. And when we got into the WVW, they meant business. It was like, right, I've got a golem, they've got a golem. Where do you need a golem? Let's bring a golem up. Right, we need to. Right, great. But my favourite little bit was just me being sneaky. We had the bit where there's a ranger on a cliff who was firing down at us.
Oh my god, this is awesome.
My favorite.
So I snuck up around, and for some reason I was popular with them that night. I don't know why, but I snuck up around, got behind this ranger who noticed me, and I let off Shield of Absorption with this big bubble. It is Shield of Absorption, I think. Big bubble, and it pushes back anything it hits. So I stood 3 yards away from her and pushed her off the cliff.
Nice.
I was happy. And then what happened was, that really annoyed her and 3 or 4 of her friends. So I hid round a corner, and her 3 or 4 friends came round, but not realising that I had 30 of my friends coming round the corner, and it turned into they had to pick them off the ground with a spatula. So that was great.
GB, we rolled deep.
Great time.
Rolled deep with friends.
Oh yeah.
How about you, Richie? What's your highlight?
I'll probably steal Elizabeth's here, but when she was leading me and getting me killed over and over again, you know, over an hour later, we finally got to what she was trying to show me. She had found that the Kodan, which are these kind of like polar bear people, were in the beta. If you got to this remote area.
I didn't get to them, but I've been hearing all about them. Everybody's loving them.
And yeah, it was really cool. It was just this quiet little place. Thank you. There was not a lot of players around. We had it kind of like to ourselves, and they had really cool voices, and it was just very serene, and it was a really cool moment seeing that.
That's actually
footage of it.
That's actually a race that Elizabeth, I think you guys were speculating today in chat, Gamebreaker chat, about them. You actually think they might be a playable race eventually?
I would love for them to be. I think it makes sense. I mean, you got to have something cool for expansions, and so in my heart of hearts, I'm kind of hoping for Kodan maybe.
Next question, ArenaNet, when is the expansion coming? We already want to know. The game is not out. Elizabeth already wants an expansion.
If they can't tell me the release date, they might as well tell me an expansion date.
There you go.
There you go.
See, I said that last week too. See, I wasn't just being a troll when I said that. We want to know. We want Kodan. We want them now. Well, in a bit. So tell us when.
Elizabeth, what was your favorite point of the weekend?
I'm not going to say World versus World, although it probably was. It was just kind of this wonderful crowning glory. But I actually found the catapult for the first through the upper level fire area of the DSF Plateau, and I was streaming, and I was kind of just looking for something fun to do. And like it was this beautiful moment. I just saw the shadow and kind of outline of it. So I started heading towards it, and on the way over, I found this event that had you putting on a cow disguise and training with cattle. And I did that, and that was just super frivolous and fun and lighthearted and good. And then I went over to the catapult and saw, this Mad Mardine Bichar inventor launching cows into the air, and you get to see them splat on the harpies. And
I was gonna stop you and say, like, you did say catapult, right?
Yeah,
and not
catapult.
catapult. You did say.
No, I do know how it's spelled. Yeah, catapult. It is pulting cattle.
So you're launching cows.
Yes, you're launching cows into the air, and it's just super fun. And it looks like there was a little bit of a bug with the text to follow up, but it looks like after you've done defending the cows for the catapult, you can actually place bets on how far they go, which I'm really hoping is exactly what it looked like, because it was completely fun.
You can bet on how far you can catapult?
It looks like you can. I don't want to promise it. The text pop-up was bugged, but he was.
I would get a great group of Gamebreaker peeps to sit there all day and do that. Like, that's something I would get wrapped up in and just be like, all right, bets are going down. We're like throwing dice. Here we go. Start your
GuildCast After Dark.
Seriously, there it is. You get the catapult and you start placing bets. I love that.
If you go to the Gamebreaker forums, people have been posting their favourite screenshots of the characters, and I forgot who posted it, but there's one of their character looking all heroic, and in the background, just like there, you can see a cow flying like in a somersault behind them, and there's a red arrow going flying cow.
Flying cow. Awesome. I think my favorite moment, we're going to talk a little bit more about this coming up in a few minutes. It was actually this isn't like a story per se, but it was actually the level of difficulty for my personal story. Like, I loved the fact that when I got to a certain, I think it was like my second or third, I can't remember what number in there on the arc it was, but I got to a point where I was in like the third or fourth portion of it. And I wiped like 4 times, 5 times, and I was like, and then, but I totally, it was totally beatable because I did it by myself and I soloed it, and I was like, it was fine, and I was so refreshed. I was like, wow, that felt challenging, and that's one of those things, Scott, like you were talking about before, that we've been so conditioned by MMOs, like things like that are usually just like, oh, you can just blaze through this, like you're just killing time more than being challenged, and I was totally challenged, and it made me go like, I'm gonna freaking beat this thing, man. Like, I know it's, and I was like, is there something wrong? Like, it tells you what level I'm supposed to be. I'm like, I'm the right level. Like, am I like, I don't have the right gear? I'm like, no, I think I have the right gear. I'm okay. And I was like, man, maybe I just gotta get better at this. And that's actually when I really started to learn dodge. When I really started learning how to roll, game changed. Game change, totally game change.
And then you stop sucking.
Yes, yes.
It is amazing how many MMOs in those first few levels teach you how to press buttons rather than how to play your class. Because in most MMOs, those first 5 to 10 levels, there is nothing that is going to challenge you. As long as you know what the 1, 2, or 3 key is, you're going to win. Or if you can right-click, you're going to win. Can't do that in Guild Wars. And that's how you learn how to play your profession. Now, because it's so expansive, all the different skills you can get with all the different weapons, you need to start learning how to use the first one you get well and early. And the way to do that is to have some challenging stuff. To me, that's how you do it. You don't hold hands, but you give yourself an opportunity. Like if you get killed in those, you can go straight back in and try. And the sort of level, say if you've got 5 mobs and you kill 2, there's 3 left still. So you're still going to be able to do it eventually, and it'll be a bit more sort of like ramming your head against a wall, and the wall will eventually fall down. But if you look at what you're doing, you will learn. So there's not that complete sort of frustration of having to start all over again each time, but also it's not going to be a complete cakewalk for you where you can just randomly hit anything and it doesn't matter. And I loved that.
Here's the only thing though, Elizabeth, right? Tell me about this. Like, what did you think? Because I know on the flip side, some people, I had seen people saying, and I just saw somebody actually say in chat, and he's not the first person, or she's not the first person I've seen say this, is circle strafing and dodge and you win the game. So now is it a case though that you get that they've relied on that mechanic to the point that it's almost too powerful that once you get it, you can almost dodge everything in the game and it becomes actually too easy?
I would say that it's a pretty good tactic for most things you come across, but there are some encounters you can have that aren't going to make that possible. If you get a boss or anyone with an AoE pull, if you get anyone who actually does manage to land a snare on you and you've been relying on circle strafe to be safe up till then, it's not going to be super great for you. So, you know, your energy repips only so quickly. So if you use up your dodges and you're not careful about them and you're doing it kind of frivolously just to be safe, not going to work so well because you're going to be out of energy that time that you really do need to dodge. So being smart about dodging and circle strafing can probably get you through everything more or less. But again, it's not like you can just run in a circle and fire one and be okay through everything.
If you're mashing your button, basically what you're doing is, if you're up against, say, if you pull a group and there's a few of them with AoE abilities, the first one will lay down the AoE and you'll dodge out of the way. The second one will lay down an AoE and you'll dodge out of the way. Then the third one will lay it down, you're out of energy and you're stuck. And so if you just keep mashing the button at whatever's coming at you, if you basically know that one of the attacks isn't going to hurt you too much, then you can not dodge out of that and be ready to dodge for the thing that is going to mess you up. So yes, dodging and strafing is important, very important in the game, but even with that, you need to know when to use it and not get yourself into the kind of trouble where even that isn't going to save you.
Jesse Cox, even circle strafing and dodging is not going to save you from the Gamebreaker Guild. Just saying. Just saying, bro. All right, really quick, gotta pay the bills. If you guys have not checked out Netflix, netflix.com/GamebreakerTV, they're giving a special offer right now to all of you guys right here, just the Gamebreaker peeps, just for you guys. If you go over to netflix.com/Gamebreaker TV, going to give you a free 30-day trial for their streaming service. I love the streaming service. I watch mostly television shows in the streaming service. I know you're a fan as well, Scott, right?
Yes, I am. Things that I've watched recently, Doctor Who again, which you have got to start watching. I know. Forget your ancient aliens rubbish. Get onto your Doctor Who.
Rubbish.
You're rubbish. How many seasons of Doctor Who do they have on here? They have
There's 6. There's 6 seasons, 6 full seasons, plus about half a dozen specials as well on there from the last run of series. Plus all of the old classic ones. Well, not all of them, but most of them are there as well. So yeah, if you want to get into Doctor Who, basically everything you need for Doctor Who is on Netflix at the moment.
I don't know, Wing Chun looks pretty awesome right here. I kind of want to.
I actually just started watching Doctor Who.
Did you?
13 Assassins.
13 Assassins is great.
13 Assassins is on Netflix.
Super
Watch
great.
13 Assassins.
Absolutely. Listen to the British man.
See what you're missing out on? Go to Netflix.com and Netflix.com/Gamebreaker TV. And you know what? Even if you don't like Netflix or you think you don't, give it a shot. It's free. And you know what? It helps Gamebreaker. So keeps the trains a rolling. Netflix.com/Gamebreaker TV. 30-day free trial. You don't like it, you just cancel it, whatever you got to do. But I'm pretty sure that when you try it, you're going to like it, especially if you have like an iOS device or an iPad or something like that, or an Apple TV. Forget it. Over with. All right, let's talk about some dev posts. I saw this. I'm like, dev post? Really? It's like a real MMO or something. Like, what the heck's happening over here? Right? Like, what we get dev posts all of a sudden?
Red posts.
First up,
Yes, red posts.
First up, Mike Ferguson had this to say. He said, he's talking about CC a little bit here. He said, our CC tends to be shorter in duration because long durations are simply not fun for people who get hit with them and end up stun locked till dead. Wonder what he's talking about there. On the other hand, almost every profession has access to at least some of the CC between stuns, knockdowns, knockbacks, chills, etc. Who's snickering? I heard somebody snickering when was that
Just
Richie?
me. I'm just naturally snicker.
You're just naturally snickering. You have no idea what he's
just
talking
snicker.
about, right? Hard to argue this, right? I mean, it's no fun to die inside of a stun. It's lame. But it's one of those things that we're used to, and we're used to this in other MMOs, right? I mean,
it's true. It's true. I mean, the thief can lock you down quite a bit at the moment. That might need looking at a little, but and that's the closest that true sort of stun lock and death that you'll get in the game at the moment, I think. But it makes sense. It's not fun if you're fighting somebody and you don't get the chance to make the right choice.
Yep.
If it's that you had a chance to get out of it at a certain point and didn't make that choice, then cool, that's called good gameplay. But if you never get a chance to retaliate or make a response because you just locked down completely, then it's just frustrating.
It's lame.
It's boring.
It was the number one complaint I think I saw people in Star Wars: The Old Republic talk about in PvP was the stun lock. It's everybody just hated it.
It's crazy.
What do you got, Richie? What do you think of ArenaNet's approach here?
No, I agree with you. I was gonna mention Star Wars: The Old Republic. I mean, especially the level 50 PvP in that. It just every few seconds you're either stunned or pulled somewhere or pushed somewhere, and it's fun to actually do that to other people, but it's really obnoxious when it just gets done to you over and over again. And my experience so far in Guild Wars 2 is there's enough things that will slow you or do things to you, but never did I feel totally out of control of my character. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's a sweet spot there. It's there's short duration things, but you still have the fun. You can do a gust of wind and not send someone flying a little bit. But I don't know. I think they've got a sweet spot there of.
You need a fighting chance. You need a fighting chance, like in anything. You can't just lock people down. It just becomes completely lame. I mean, it's fun because I feel like when we talk about a lot of this stuff, and I know we're just totally fanboying out right now, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like we just keep saying the same things over again. I feel like ArenaNet's really taking the time to kind of not, look at what the MMO genre has done and sort of question it and say hey, everyone else has done this. But, should we do this? Should we do this and kind of possibly do it differently? I mean, Elizabeth, see, everybody loves CC abilities, and they're definitely fun to use, like we're talking about. But, I mean, in your experience with the game, though, did you feel like there was, enough things to keep it interesting, on your classes?
There are, for sure. And another nice thing that really makes it easy to succeed is that, or easy if you know what you're doing to succeed, is that every class has utility skills that break stuns, and there aren't a lot of them, but there are some that are in there. So if you're fighting someone in PvP, say, and you know that they are relying, thieves right now are really relying on their CCs, and if you know that and you see it coming and you break out of it right away, suddenly they've lost a lot of their momentum. And you have a fighting chance again because, hey, you knew what was coming and you were able to prepare for it, and you're ready to kind of turn the tides on them. So I think right now they've put in enough that it can be very balanced if people are aware of that and aware of what's being popular. If nobody's using stuns, there's not much point to have a stun breaker with you. But since they were pretty much in popular use, at least with the thief crowd, it's nice to have those with you and be able to, even if it's only every other time that they use that skill, be able to just kind of surprise them by breaking out.
So I have to point out, just because I have to at every chance I possibly can, how cool the Gamebreaker community actually is, to reinforce what Scott said before. So somebody in our chat room, while you were just talking about CC, right? No, seriously. Somebody in the chat room just said, what is CC? It's actually a legitimate question for a new player coming to an MMO.
I see no accurate ansers.
Now you're down to some of the other answers. But you know what? All the answers. Here's one thing. There's now trolling answers like Coca-Cola and chocolate cake, which are fun. But you know what? I did not see one answer that said noob, GTFO. I did not see one person totally tell the person to get out of chat, which I feel like Gamebreaker community are awesome. They were just helping out.
I felt that all weekend long in the guild chats that I was a part of. I mean, everyone was just helping everyone. There was no like arguing or people like being mean to other people. It was really great.
Now they're all yelling noob and GTFO. Go ahead.
Yeah, of course.
we had some specific like guild problems because I made the guild on Friday. At
I heard about this.
sometime before launch, and then Saturday. So then it filled. You can only. I know it was the same guild as one, but I would love it if they increased the amount of accounts that you could have in your guild, because we filled 100 accounts up
easily,
quick.
Yeah, really fast.
Very quick. And then so we made the second and third guild, and then Saturday afternoon the servers went down, and when they come back up, I could only see the guild that I wasn't the leader of anymore. So that made communication a little bit of a trouble.
That's it, man. Guilds don't work. I quit. I'm out. I take my stuff.
And at the same time that was going on, like whispering stopped working too, and guild chat. So it was just it was a mess.
Do you guys think
we were like trying to communicate with each other? We're like, what's happening?
That could be a big problem. Do you think that the guild number should be increased over 100? Because that seems kind of low.
Yeah, I think so. It's one of the things because without a way to sort of have alliances cross guild, if you have alliances across guild, so you could communicate, have a channel between guilds, then that could work. But I don't really see that it's necessary if you just have a large guild.
Yeah, then we're gonna have like Gamebreaker. We're gonna have Gamebreaker 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and they're just all gonna be alliances. It's kind of ridiculous.
I'd be interested to see.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'd be interested to see if they have that as a influence reward. So right now the way that guild works is you go out and you do adventures with other guild people, or just while you're representing the guild, you accrue influence points which you can spend on different upgrades and such. I'd be interested to see if maybe they would implement something where you can upgrade, the space in your roster for influence, so that you don't have everybody rolling around with 500 or 1,000 person guilds that they don't need, but you're rewarding people who actually have tremendously active guilds by letting them have more people.
Would you pay? Do you think that would that be an okay addition to the Cash App? You guys think that would be not too much?
No,
too far?
I think people might complain a little because that's a core thing.
Yeah.
Right,
that'd be really.
Well, who pays for that?
I think it wouldn't make sense. Like, the whole point of an influence system is that you're rewarding what people are doing, which is what they're doing with everything else. You reward PvP with cool PvP gear. You reward PvE with cool PvE stuff. So saying you reward world or guild participation with spending real physical money just doesn't really make sense to me.
And that was one of the things I had to answer the most over the weekend was when people would join the guild and then get on an alt and then send me a tell for an invite to the guild. I'd be like, "You're in the guild." Like, "No, I'm not. This is a different." No, you're in the guild. If you go down to your guild tab and hit represent, that character's in the guild too. You're invited by account to the guild, not by character. So every character that you've got is in the guild as soon as the first one is. And that was like, because everybody's just used to the other way of doing it, people got really confused. Like, I know some people got a bit sort of like, "What? No, I've told you I haven't been invited on this too." "No, you're already in." "No, I'm not." Like,
I got so many whispers like that too. Oh man, it's crazy.
Like, "No, I'm not."
I just kept referring them to Scott. Go talk to Scott.
Thanks.
He's the Gamebreaker dude. Go talk to him. All right, next up, Anthony Ordon said, keep in mind that you've only seen a small part of the game. Unfortunately, it's not very welcoming to new players to lock down entire sections of the zones when they fail events. Later on, we might not be so forgiving. So this is interesting. I mean, would you guys like to see, really punishing players for failing events through areas? Elizabeth, you're just shaking your head. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that one of the things that I've heard a lot of backlash, even from other massively people who are playing, was that dynamic events don't feel very weighty at the moment, and that kind of makes sense in lower level areas. Like, you have somewhere, if you lose a town, you can't use that vendor, and so you have to take it back, but there's not like a real sting of defeat, and I think that was missing for a lot of people who really want to be invested in the outcomes. So I think that if we saw higher levels that actually had serious consequences, as far as players had to actually work to make things right again, as opposed to just, oh, I'll kill those couple centaurs again kind of thing. And I'm not in any way degrading what's out there right now. Like what we saw, I'm very happy with, but I know it would make a lot of people really thrilled and much more satisfied with kind of the way that the system's delivering if we had like real consequences.
The closest I saw to that, and it's a very sort of light touch in that direction, was one of the ones in Shamor where there's bandits poisoning the water supply. And if you don't, what happens is at the start that you've got to stop them from poisoning it, or they poisoned it, and if they manage to poison it, then you've got to find an antidote. And if you don't manage to find an antidote, basically the entire area is full of NPCs puking their guts out. And if you do it wrong after that, you actually have bandits carrying bomb kegs up to the water pipes and blowing them up, and they blow up and fall apart in front of you.
Really? So it gets progressively more intense.
Yes.
So what happens is, what happened from one was, we failed the first one, so it was poisoned. But then they won the next one, so it went back up. But then they failed too, so we went back down twice again. And then people started getting poisoned all over the place. So it goes up in this chain, up and down. So what I think a lot of people mistook, they were running through these areas and seeing similar stages multiple times and thinking, well, it's just the same each time. No, it's not. It had gone down one, and then back up one, and then down one, and back up one. And so you only really see the difference when you either succeed a lot or fail a lot. And then you see those events are actually change a lot. This isn't you just repeating the same thing. So I know some people, when they filled that renown heart, they thought it was all over. And all the events were done and there's nothing to see anymore. But if you run on a bit more or come back a bit later, it actually might be quite different. So, because they're used to questing in the linear way before, if you've completed the quest, it's done. That's not the case with these. You might complete that stage, but come back an hour later, and what was this nice idyllic, oh look, there's bandits, there was a few bandits, oh no, there's bombs blowing up, and now everyone's poisoned, and it's all gone to hell.
But now, did any of you, because I experienced something similar, I can't remember what it was like, I played a char, so there was this, like, chat room will tell me in a second what it was. It was like this fiery, it wasn't a robot, but it was like this fiery metal, like, not
Effigy.
Effigy, right. And you get to that point where there's a fort there, and the fiery effigy comes, and with the first time we rolled up on him, I was like, oh, this is an awesome event, and we all took him down, and we killed him, and boom, he was dead. And then I was like, all right, that was fun. And then I went and did my thing, and I came back, and I really didn't feel like it was that long, and I kind of stumbled on that area again. It was the same event, like it really was the exact same event over again. He just kind of rolled up on it and was doing the same old thing, and I gotta say, I got a little bit of the twinge of the Rift invasion kind of thing, or just like, oh, this is just gonna keep happening over and over. Did you guys? No?
Yeah, well, they talked about that a little bit on the forums. Each dynamic event is on some sort of hand-picked timer, and they're usually around the 8-minute mark. And so it's very possible, especially in these smaller, earlier areas, to see things over and over again. And they did allude to the fact that not only are they looking hard at the timers to see if that to be adjusted at all, but as you break out of these starter areas, you're going to see events that maybe take 30 minutes to respawn, and as Scott was mentioning, the further you get in the game, you're going to see the dynamic events with multiple chains more often, and they're going to be at various stages. So it's really going to cut down on the number of repeat events that you see in the same phase.
And the chat room is telling me, and I don't know if we have confirmation of this, if you guys have any info on this, but chat room is saying that they heard that events were actually sped up in beta.
Yeah, I was kind of assuming that they sped it up because there were so many people in these starter areas, so you just want to make sure that people had stuff to do and not have hundreds of people in an area and just standing around waiting for the event to spawn. So I kind of thought it was like dynamically doing that, depending on how many people were actually there, but I could be wrong on that.
I did just hope we don't get into that repetition, because that was one thing in Rift that kind of like was selling me on Rift and I was loving about it. I loved the invasions early on, but I do have to say that once I started seeing them 2-3 times, it did lose its luster and it did lose its cool appeal. And I guess if maybe if I'm playing the right way, I should be moving throughout the zone in a different way, and maybe they think I'm going to be somewhere else. But the idea for Guild Wars 2 is to also come back into these areas and see things kind of that are different, and the world being different. And I came back, I don't know what it was, and a half hour later, and it was kind of the same. And I saw the same effigy taking over the same town.
I think the base example is when you first get out into Divinity's Reach is the one where it's the farm and you've got the hay bales that get set on fire. I think it's one of the first ones that anybody, when you cross that first bridge, it's one of the first renowned ones you come to. Now, what most people see is because there's a lot of people there in that area, they fought off the bandits and that was the end of it. However, how many people saw a giant worm spring up out the centre of the farm at some point? Now, I'll bet you a lot of people didn't. They just saw the little worms that come out and the bandits, and then you put the fire out, and that's it.
Oh yeah, I never saw the large worm.
There's a giant at one stage in this when he goes up. There's a giant worm springs out through the floor in the centre of the farm that for you to all pile onto. And I caught that as I was running past twice and missed it because I was too busy looking off at a windmill or something or getting distracted by something that looked pretty. I don't know. I'll go and look at my garden, isn't it awesome? But
That's what I was going to say.
I kept missing. I know that's why I said it. I kept missing that one. I was like, oh, I want to see that. So even in that, which is the first real one that many people have come across, it's probably the most basic event that you'll see. Even that had something that you might not have seen, but because we're used to that, if you've seen a quest, you've seen all of it. People are expecting that, oh, that's just it then, because I've seen it twice, and then that means that must be all there is. And it isn't. There's actually more there, but it's just when you're going to be there and what time you're going to be there.
I hope that's the case for the long haul. I did say I get a little twinge of it. All right, let's move on, because this is going to be the longest GuildCast in the history of GuildCast right here. We're like, what, hour 11 in, and I don't even know, I think we're maybe halfway. I don't know. I think we're a little far there. All right, so next up, Andrew McLeod talked about the difficulty level of PvE content. This is what I was talking about before. And he said, it often takes people a while to get used to Guild Wars 2 combat and learn to avoid attacks and learn what their skills do and how they work. We're looking at slowing down the rate in which we introduce different enemy mechanics so that new players have more of a chance to get accustomed to the game. And this is what I was talking about before when I said I did find, I guess, I don't want to say overwhelming, but I had that sense of I don't know what's happening and I'm a little bit crazed right now. But I got to say, I like the line where it's at. I hope they don't go over the edge and almost make it a little too easy. I kind of felt it was the right play. How did you guys feel? Did you feel that the level of difficulty at lower level content, Elizabeth, did you run into any issues? Do you feel lost at all?
Not really. I kind of viewed the whole first area that you go into as kind of the tutorial zone because everything there's very simple. You know, you start out and immediately around your capital city are the level like 1 and 2 and 3 creatures. So you have this whole kind of area to get used to kind of fighting. You've got some hearts and events going on in those areas. In each and every one of them, there's a very simple dynamic event that's going on. You've got the watermelon eating rabbits in the human area. You've got you know, answering Raven's questions for the Norn, and you have the cattle prod thing for the Char characters. And so I think it's a way to kind of introduce characters to the system, introduce them to fighting, all with very minimal consequence. So coming from that perspective, I thought that it was a very good introduction.
What do you think, Scott?
I think that I'm not quite sure where they're coming from about introducing the different abilities, because as Elizabeth said, at early levels, there wasn't enough. I think that what they're worried about is because people are getting a grasp of their own skills, that they don't want to throw too much variety at them to confuse. But I don't think that was the case at early levels. And I think that when you really get a good hold of your first set of skills, it really helps you towards learning your second set, because you start to understand how things sort of like combine with each other and the fact that there is such variety. So I want it challenging. I don't think the early levels are too challenging at all. There isn't. I can't think of any combination of mobs where it was confusing, where they were all doing things in tandem that felt like I was in a raid fight or something. It just wasn't like that. So I'd be wary about tampering with that too much.
Here's the thing, Richie, though. Like, are we sort of not the norm and not, you know, really who they're looking at? I mean, we've played MMOs.
Yeah.
I wish I could have put you on camera for that, Elizabeth, just to say. Can you do that again?
Nope.
Come on.
I cannot. Nope.
You're blushing and you're not even on camera, but I'm just going to...
I'm worried you're saying that we're abnormal or something.
No, No, but I'm saying that, you know,
they suspenders out.
What I'm saying is they really do have to think about the first-time MMO player, like the person who's bought Guild Wars 2 and they've never played an MMO before. Maybe they played some free-to-play games, maybe they played some FPS or something, but maybe this is their first MMO. Maybe they've never. Oh my God, it's crazy to think that there's somebody out there who's never played World of Warcraft, but you know what? They exist. And that's really who I think that, like, you know, that level 1 to 10 is that they need to cater that experience more to that player than they somewhat do to us. Like, we need to be happier at a little bit after, like, I'd say after level 8 to 10. That's when I think our crowd needs to get really happy. I think all of us will push through to level 8 to 10.
I just don't see where that complication is, though, in the first few levels, to be honest. I'd say maybe it's just, you know, I've been playing games, MMOs for years, and and that might be why. But honestly, I can't think of anything that threw something out of left field at you in the first few levels.
You have been, though. I got to say, like, we talked about this on the Sanctum, which was our riff show way back in the day. In the Sanctum, I played that game at launch with a person who had never played an MMO in their life. And it was such a bizarre and enlightening experience to be reminded how complex these games actually are to a player that's never played them, you know, and he's a very, very smart individual and was just like, wow, there is so much going on to these games and it's so deep. And it's like, we just take it for granted. Crafting and trade skills and the auction house and different forms of currency and different forms of gear. It's like, there's so many things. And I know they're not introducing all of that stuff into the game that early on, but I think what he's talking about here is that there is probably, like I said, I had some confusion just with like the WV stuff. It's like just some simple stuff. Yeah. Elizabeth, what do you think? You're Rich. What do you think?
No, I think you're spot on there. And like we sit there and, you know, we're veterans, or we have a lot of experience playing a lot of these games and stuff like that. But that's why we're kind of saying we like it being challenging. We don't want them to hold our hands. That's why we like that. And there's so many people who would never watch a show like this. There's so many people who would never, like, you know, look things up online. And they just want to play and they want to relax. And if they're bombarded right away and they're totally confused and not really understanding how it goes, they might never give the game a shot. So I do think that you have to be careful there. You don't want to just become the hardcore game, you know, if you want to hit a mass audience. I have the answer to everything. You just stumbled upon it. Yeah. ArenaNet just has to get everybody who plays Guild Wars 2 to watch this show. That's right.
There you go.
That's it.
Sorted.
That's it. It's like, there's the answer.
If everybody watches the
show, they'll all be in the know, and we'll make the 1%, the 100%, and then we're good to go. That's it. ArenaNet, make it happen.
But it's actually funny you say that, because so many times during the beta weekend, like, so, you know, here I am talking about the show, and, you know, and I think that I'm fairly knowledgeable, but people were whispering me, you know, asking me questions in the Gamebreaker chat. And there were so many times where I'm like, I don't know the answer to that. Like, I have to look things up. So it's like there's a lot to learn for all of us. We're all new to this, you know.
All right. So this is something I talked about before. Some people, I think, on the forums and some other places actually had a little bit of trouble with their personal stories, as did I. Especially the parts that took place inside of buildings that you couldn't really kite. That was one area that I was actually, as a char, same thing, where I wiped a few times. I have to say, the question I'm going to pose to everybody is, you know, does this need adjusting? Does it possibly... the veteran MMO in me wants to say no, but I was like level 7 or 8 at that point, and I don't know. What do you think, Elizabeth?
Everyone, unless you have a difficulty slider in the game, you're never going to make everybody happy with it. I felt pretty comfortable with the way that things were, especially because there's the option to resurrect or revive at a checkpoint through the mission. I felt like that helped me in the couple times that I was stuck on, you know, an encounter. I was able to, you know, I've already made this much progress. I can, you know, pull through and make this. So I feel like it's a pretty forgiving system. So I was content with the difficulty of it, but
I think you stumbled on something, though. Difficulty level slider in an MMO would be revolutionary. I'm not kidding. No, seriously, think about it. You play FPS, and every time you play an FPS, the first thing it says is, do you want to play casual, like normal, or are you hardcore? Could you imagine if you could play that in an MMO? That'd be kind of interesting. Did you wipe...
No.
What's this, Scott?
So I was going to say, in my personal story, in the first one when I was playing my Guardian, the first time round, I beat the main character in down state, and to me that's a cool win.
That's awesome.
Just about made it.
How much were you
that's
button smashing at that
exactly what I
point?
want.
How much were you just like? You were white knuckling like every moment of that. You were like, down. I'm gonna die. I have no idea what's gonna happen. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect for me. I love that.
Did you guys wipe a lot? Richie? Did you wipe a lot on any of the personal story stuff?
Not this time.
No, I didn't. But I think that some of the issues that people were having with some of the difficulty was that not sure if the experience point tuning was exactly where it needs to be. A lot of people were saying that they finished all the hearts in an area, they went and did some dynamic events multiple times, and they still their personal story was out leveling them, and they weren't quite ready to go to the next zone. And I've seen some forum posts on that, and the internet devs said that they might have to look at that. They're trying to say that you have to keep in mind that there are lots of things like points of interest to get some exploring experience points. There's those skill challenges you can do, and the devs are trying to get more information about are you doing all of these things and still not being enough to move to the next level, or so it could be some of the difficulty that some people were experiencing, whether in personal story or just doing dynamic events, was a little bit tied to the amount of experience they were gaining and trying to tackle content that might have been a little bit too difficult for them.
So we the only people that matter say I just see the chat room blowing up, just saying like, make it more difficult, punish me. No, because I think the MMO player who's played a few MMOs and put them under their belts are kind of over the days of just tank and spank and just wiping. It's they don't want just a time sink anymore. They want something challenging.
It's boring.
Don't give me Dark Souls though, please. Don't. I don't want that bad. I'd rather just like repeatedly punch myself in the face, but I don't want that.
I agree.
All right, really quickly. I know we have ads now, and I'm talking about Netflix and all that kind of stuff. And we have sponsors, but we still do rely heavily on donations here at Gamebreaker.tv. If you guys like GuildCast, this episode, or any of the other shows that we do here on Gamebreaker TV, I urge you to go over to Gamebreaker.tv. There's a little donate button in the top right corner there. You can click it, and you can donate $1, $5, $10, whatever you can. It all goes back into making this all happen and get us to where we are. So I appreciate all of the donations that you guys have already donated. Thank you. Go over to Gamebreaker.tv and donate. So let's see. Next up, John Peters had this to say about Melee. He said, right now, Melee is more difficult than ranged. There are some things we will try to do to address this, but I think the more you play, you would find they are closer than you think. How'd you guys feel about this? Do you agree with this? I mean,
yeah.
With the weapon sets you guys used, I mean, did you find this to be the case, Richie?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one argument people always say is, well, every class has a ranged weapon option. So, if you're having trouble with something, you could switch to ranged and do that. But I think it goes a little bit beyond that. I always felt more comfortable at range. Not that being in melee was impossible, but a necro with axes is really awesome. But I do feel like some of these events and some of these bosses, they scale up depending on the number of people that are around them, and at certain points you can kind of get one-shotted very easily, especially some of these AoE abilities and stuff like that. I think that they can do maybe a better job at telegraphing some of these big one-shotting abilities, or maybe find ways to scale up some of these creatures so that they're just not doing more damage. They need to do different things, and that might help it a little bit. But yeah, I did feel in World versus World and and just doing PvE that Melee had it a little bit tougher.
But this isn't really unique to Guild Wars 2, right, Elizabeth? I mean, it's not like it's always going to be easier not to get hit in the face if you're ranged.
Right. That said, I thought that my warrior, who I had the greatsword on, I had her set up with a greatsword and a bow, and I almost never used the bow if I didn't feel like it. Like, I felt she was very survivable. I was more or less doing things on my own at that point, and I wasn't ever in any real danger. I was running around a lot. There were a lot of mobs going on, so I don't know if the warrior's just like super OP with a greatsword, but I think that they are actually closer than most people think, and I think that as people play more and get more comfortable with the system. But yeah, I saw a lot of people talking about it, and I've said before, I mean, after the last beta, we were talking about how in dungeons, melee is just not an option if you're not super heavy armor and you're not super defensive.
Here's
I
something.
think.
Go ahead, Scott.
So I was going to say, I think certainly from the first weekend, I felt that range really had way too much of an advantage from the first weekend. But this weekend I didn't, and it wasn't because they changed, it's because I did, and I knew what I was doing more. That's simply like in WVW on my Guardian. Yes, I know. Here we go.
Wow, you were pushing Jesse Cox's face into the mud. Yeah, we know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was happening.
That was yeah. I was having a lot of trouble with anything ranged because they would just leave me in the dust, and I was like, oh well. But then I basically just looked at my abilities, and I went, okay, my staff, I've got similar swiftness, which slaps down an AoE, and if you walk through it, it gives you a speed boost, and also anybody else around you. But that wasn't quite enough. So I did that, and then switched in a sword. And what happens is I was laying down similar swiftness, running through it, speeding myself up, switching into my sword as my switch weapon, and then using an ability that teleports you and blinds them. So before I was going nowhere near them because I was using a mace, but then because I switched my weapons and figured out how to combine abilities, suddenly that 30-yard gap was nothing. I was on them, and then we ripped them to pieces. So that to me is a case of showing that range seems to be overpowered because it's very easy to be. But if you know what you're doing at melee and know how to combine the different weapons and skills that are available, I had to look at the different weapons I had and look at the abilities and figure it out. But the thing is, that sort of learning was very organic. And it's like, there's a problem, how do I get around it? Look at what I can do, click, and that leap of logic, and when it works, is gorgeous because you've learned and you know your profession more and you feel like you've really made something. And after that, I didn't have a problem ripping range to pieces because they don't expect it. They're not expecting a guardian to come suddenly speed up at them and then appear on top of them and then start beating their heads in. Then it was fantastic.
I think there's something to say to that. I mean, we're still very early on, and people are still getting used to it. And my preference seemed to always go towards being ranged. But of course, I was a necro, not maybe a warrior, so it could be different. But I did find that once I mapped my strafe keys to my extra buttons on my mouse, and I can actually kind of circle and do all the movement with my mouse hand, and then just use my actions with my left hand. That really helped a lot with melee. Because not having to actually hit my W key or my A key to rotate while I'm trying to hit my action buttons and have that all on my mouse. So maybe it's just a personal preference kind of thing. Maybe people need to find out what works best for them, and then that will kind of help solve some of those issues.
Scott, I can see the headline tomorrow on Gamebreaker. Scott Hawk says you suck at PvP. There you go.
Thanks.
No problem.
No.
Here's something we
haven't
talked about this in a while, and I think it needs to be brought up, is that with this discussion here, what we're talking about, do you think it's more noticeable in Guild Wars 2 because ArenaNet don't want anyone to be sort of too tanky? Because they have to, the whole Trinity sucks and all that, so they kind of,
But you can be. Is the thing. Mm-hmm. To a certain extent, you can be. If you go into, I'm going to do it again, aren't I? Guardian, and it really is at high levels. Because to start with, you're so busy learning about your skills that's everything. But then when you start really figuring how the traits combine with them, that's when you really sort of finesse. You'll get to get the feel for what your style of play is, and then when you understand the trait system, that will reinforce that style of play as you progress along the game. So I think that there's certainly more survivability there than initially it feels like, especially with the way you get those auto traits when you go into world PvP, because some of them, when you've got them all, just everything just all filled out for you, a lot of that isn't ideal really for what you're doing. So when you learn how to manipulate that, I think that you'll be able to skew things more in the direction you want. You're not going to just be a tank and spank sort of player. That isn't going to be the case. But you can certainly, if you're just talking about survivability and the within like melee range, it's feasible. You've got to still know when to do it, know your skills, your dodge, and your movement and everything. But it's certainly more feasible than you might think.
This game's not pay to win. It's no tank and spank. I'm going home. I quit. Take my stuff.
There he goes again.
You're a diva.
I'm just shuffling off. All right. John Peters. I'm shuffling home. Every day I'm shuffling. All right. So John Peters continued. He said, first, what's already there. 1, melee does more damage. Melee damage is simply higher than range damage across the board. And 2, melee has more control. With a few intentional exceptions, melee has a lot more control than ranged. Whatever it is, I mean, this makes sense, right? I mean, there's got to be some reward for, again, hitting in the face. Like, if you're going to get hit in the face, right, Elizabeth? I mean, you're going to hit in the face, you got to have something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who would argue with that?
Who would argue with that?
If I'm standing over you and, smacking you in the head, I want you to feel it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just being polite.
You think this is all going back to the dodge mechanic for a second? Do you think that's a huge factor in this as well? Is that like they really just need to get players more used to the game, like you said, getting used to the dodge mechanic, getting used to your skill sets and your weapon sets and things like that to actually play the game correctly?
Yeah, and you also have to learn that it's not kind of like other MMOs where you're necessarily going to stay in melee range and that's all you're going to do. There's going to be times when some of your defensive abilities or maybe your dodge meter's out or your healing skill's not up that you need to kind of move away for a little while and switch, maybe switch weapon sets for a little bit. When things come off cooldown, then you can go back in. You can't just stand behind the mob and stab and hope to win. You got to do different things. So I think that's another thing that people, need to learn a little bit more.
I noticed that I was generally a lot less successful as a warrior. I had a sword equipped, my great sword equipped, and a hammer equipped, and that was just not a good combination because it was essentially fulfilling more or less the same purpose twice. I had 2 big, heavy, high damage weapons that were close range. And another thing, kind of tangentially, I think that it makes sense, again, with what we were talking about kind of reinforcing playstyles. If you play melee, placement matters. If you play ranged, it doesn't make sense to have much control over placement of other characters because it's all at range. But if you're melee and you know that knocking them back is going to be really good because then you can switch to something else and get in a couple shots and then switch back to melee, like that control matters when you're up close and personal. So I think that, again, is kind of reinforcing playstyles for players, and I think that's very intelligently done.
And I think what people also don't understand is with the dodge mechanic, where it makes you have to become proficient in understanding your surrounding area, because if you just hit and dodge, you could be jumping into the next red circle on the floor. So you have to figure out not only when to dodge, but where to dodge to maximize your ability to get out of whatever's coming next. So you can be melee and go out of range and then back into range, and it actually works better than running off in a certain direction and just going into a lot more trouble. It's situational, which is the key thing with this game. Is so much of it is situational rather than just rotational. You can't expect to do the same thing each time. You've got to be ready to adapt to what's going on around you.
John continued on and he said what melee needs is 1, defensive tools on more weapons, particularly on lower armor professions. And 2, AI needs to favor melee a bit less than it currently does. And that, I mean, since there's only a limited number of weapon skills, I mean, does that mean, kind of a nerf to their offensive abilities? What is he actually saying there?
Well, if he's talking about the AI, is he talking about
the mobs?
Well, that's also too. I mean, and that would be weird as well, right? I mean, wouldn't it be kind of weird if you're running mobs start running past melee to get to ranged?
And we're going to say that, all melee mobs are going to be dumb. You got every mob that's got a bow is going to be a genius, and everyone that's got a sword is going to be dragging the knuckles across the floor or something. I don't know. I think again they're worried about the initial response But I really think they need to give this more time for people to catch up with the skill level. More skill level is required to survive in melee than at range. That there's no doubt. And if they maybe give a little bit of a buffer zone, perhaps to beef things up so it's not quite as demanding, okay, I guess. But I like the fact that perhaps wanting to be able to stay in melee takes some skill and takes some willingness to commit to doing that. And I want to keep that. I really do. I like the idea that if you want to get into a mob's face, you've got to know what you're doing more than if you're staying at range. And it promotes a different type of play style again, and I like that. Don't ruin it.
Don't ruin it. All right, John finished up with this. He said, finally, because of the more action-based nature of combat, melee needs to be taught better. Effective melee requires skills that translate over from FPS games, which are notoriously harder on casual players. You have to WASD. How come we don't have to WA space? You have to WASD to move, constantly aim with your mouse, camera, and hit skills on 1 through 5. So basically what John is saying is don't be a noob. That's basically the translation for that. When you put it into Babelfish, it basically says, John Peters says, don't suck.
Stop sucking.
Stop sucking, don't be a noob. And if you're a noob, I guess go face roll a ranged character. Just grab a ranged, you can face roll all day. I don't know.
Unless you're a noob who welcomes a challenge, which is perfectly okay.
It is.
Absolutely.
It is completely okay. No, but it's kind of interesting that they said this early on. I think from when they were in development, they kind of made those action-y combat / we're taking things from FPS games, I think, into account and things like that. So it is interesting that a lot of the conversation we've just had in this past, holy crap, hour and 40 minutes. I could have hang on. I could have watched. Did I tell you about Netflix? Because I could have watched all of season 1 of Doctor Who. Here they all are right here on netflix.com/Gamebreaker TV. Scott, I heard you like this show.
Yes.
Doctor Who.
You need to get past it. The first season's okay. Gets better as it goes along. But yeah, 6 seasons, lots of television. Go watch it. Gary.
I could have watched the whole thing better.
Yes, Gary.
Let's do some damn viewer questions and get the heck out of here for this week. All right, let's go. So Joe Del Pillar says, he's asking us, in Dub v Dubs, the opposing teams are just classified by their realm's color and guild tag. In the future, will we be able to see enemy names? Elizabeth, do we have any confirmation on this? Do we know?
Every time that they've been asked about it, they've said that that's an intentional design choice on that part and it's not going anywhere because they want it to be about groups. They want it to be about your world. They want it to be about your guild. They want it to be about the greater glory, not individual glory. And it keeps people from necessarily doing so much of the, I hate that one person, I'm going to grief them endlessly. So as far as we know, they're here to stay, and I'm a fan.
But I and Scott Hawks hate Jesse Cox with a passion.
So beat his entire guild. Isn't that so much more fun? Not only did he destroy you, he destroyed everyone you love. Like, isn't that better?
Jesse, if you're watching the show, I'm just going to email you this week and ask you to be on the show next week, so you might as well just answer me now. No, I love Jesse. Jesse's been on Legendary World of Warcraft show, so I have to get him on. I love Jesse. That's why I'm just.
We did not target Jesse Cox. We just killed absolutely everybody who was in the area.
And pretended he was Jesse Cox.
There you go. Richie, but how do you feel about that? Would you rather have it so that you could actually single people out, or do you like this system?
No, I kind of like it. It makes it kind of ominous, It's like you don't know who they are necessarily, and I don't know. And it was fun actually doing World vs. World with Larry, who loves role playing stuff, because he absolutely loved that mechanic was in place and that the names weren't there. And I don't know. When you just see like Red Invader or Blue Invader, it's a little bit scarier than seeing like I Love Cupcakes or something like that. So, people's names sometimes take you out of the immersion. Sometimes, so I'd just leave them alone.
Where do you sit with this, Scott? I know you hate Jesse Cox and you teabag them all weekend long, but
you can't, because if you sit down, he just does weird things at the moment. I don't mind it at all. Actually, I quite liked it because I was concentrating more on the flow of the fight, and we're actually doing strategery all over the place. We're actually doing tactics, and we were actually we were splitting off into two forces to do like a diversionary attack and all this. We weren't bothered about who they were. We just bothered about where they were, and I liked it. I don't have a problem with it, to be honest. I really don't.
I'm gonna get total flack for answering this question the way I am. I feel very bad. I did no dubs this weekend. I did none. I'm turning into such a Care Bear. No, I knew you guys were doing dubs, and I had like 4 hours. I was at a wedding, and I rushed home. I couldn't wait to get home, and I got my computer. I was like, I got 4 hours before the server's closed. I'm gonna play. And I played as much as I could, and I just PvE'd my face off, and I Care Bear'd my face off, and I didn't dub.
That's it. So, I'm out of here.
Everybody's leaving. No, I don't. So I don't know. I mean, it sounds like a decent system. I mean, I guess I don't pay that much attention to like trying to just smash Jesse Cox's face into the ground. Like just man, I don't know.
That's the name of the episode.
All right, next up from Steven Suarez. He says, I had the feeling that I wasn't leveling fast enough to keep up with my quest line or other quests. Is this going to turn people off to the game if people have to grind out killing mobs running between locations? Elizabeth, did you run into this? Did the experience like kind of curve feel off to you?
So I have to admit, I'm a terrible, terrible person, but the press NPC to level you to 30 was still in. And since I had to deal with the bad side effects of being pressed and having to transfer servers, I figured it was only fair that I also use the good side effects. So I actually didn't deal much with leveling. However, remembering from the last beta when I did actually legitimately level characters, I remember it was a little problematic, but I don't necessarily mind excuses to do more dynamic events, so I'm not going to be judging that as harshly as other people are.
It still needs a little bit of tweaking. It was better than before. It's really close. But I would say is this again, people are doing the event in one stage and thinking they've finished, and then going, well, there's nothing else left to do. And actually, all those other things you've been around, they each have different things to do within them you haven't done yet. So, and also, by the way, if you're doing the events around that level range outside of Divinity's Reach, hop on over to Holbrack, or hop on over down to the Black Citadel.
Exactly.
Same range. You can just go and do different ones over there and level up a couple of levels. And then if you want to go back, you're into the right level range. So I think, again, people are so used to the way it's done in other MMOs that things that will become blindingly obvious once you've played the game for a while aren't there yet, and that's not their fault. That's just, again, we've been trained in a very specific way.
I wonder if, Richie, I don't know, tell me what your experience was, because I wonder if this is... What's so funny? I'm going to call you out. What's so funny?
No,
you're laughing.
No, it's the next bit of the show notes. I'm sorry. I hadn't read it before.
Oh, you're just reading the show notes and chuckling.
Again, Elizabeth's jumping ahead.
Yes.
She's a cheater.
She's cheating.
She's blushing too.
First hour of playing, the guild's in there, and somebody's going, how did they get to level 31 already?
How is she level 31? I got that question like 17,000 times.
But I have to say, jumping back to this question about the leveling curve, I have to say that I was. Here's the thing, I was a little bit fixated on my personal story, right? So I wanted to almost like jump to the next portion of my personal story, and I did find myself like, oh, I'm not at the proper level for that. But I had realized that I was definitely fixated on the personal story, and I wasn't doing the other stuff in the world. But then I didn't feel like hampered by it. I just sort of went like, oh, I guess I'll just go out in the world and see some stuff and do some things, and by the time I'm done with that, I'll be ready for it. What was your experience, Rich?
Yeah, I touched on this a little bit earlier. I agree with Scott. They're close. I think they do have to do a little bit more tweaking. You shouldn't have to do every Renowned Heart, every dynamic event, and your personal story in order to get enough experience points to kind of go to the next area. I didn't feel like the leveling, I didn't feel like it was too slow leveling up my character, but when I was ready to kind of move on and see some new things, the monsters were 3 or 4, 5 levels ahead of me. So I do think that needs to be tweaked a little bit. You can absolutely go to another starting zone and do some more. You can go to Lion's Arch and just run around and get explorable experience points by getting points of interest. Do I think you should know that you need to do that? I'm not so sure. I do think they need to tweak it a little bit, but it's pretty close.
And I
read on what.
Go ahead, Scott.
Sorry, I read on one person experimented on just going to the points of interest in all 4 cities to see how much experience got. They did nothing but do that and did 7 levels.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
It's a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't even. Yeah, that was the best thing. I was really focused on Lion's Arch. I found all of the waypoints, but I got like 21 out of 26 points of interest. I couldn't even find them. I mean, it was really hard. It was challenging. But yeah, I got a ton of experience from doing that. So explorers out there, they put that little carrot out there. You hit M for map, and it'll show you in the zone how much of it have you discovered, and then the whole game is up there, and it just taunts people like me that's like a completionist, like, oh man, I've only unlocked 1% of the game.
What do you guys think of, because some people are actually feeling that it's almost call him out, Josh Allen, aka Lore from Legendary, he's loving the game, but he actually had something interesting to say, and he was like, it's one of the most linear leveling experience I've ever kind of encountered in an MMO. It is kind of linear with the heart system of like taking you from heart to heart to heart to heart. And like you said, you almost have to do dynamic event, dynamic event, dynamic event.
No, I think he said it's non-linear, didn't he?
No, he did. He thought it was very linear, because what Josh thought, shall we say, coming from Josh, especially the game he plays a lot at the moment, shall we say, you're used to, right, you do this, and then you do that, and then you do that, you do that. I've completed the zone, then I move on. That's not how you have to do things. If you want to go and hit all, that's fine. But if you want to just go and explore other places, you'll get XP for doing that. If you want to go and just do different stuff, you'll get XP for doing that. You don't have to.
Did I get that totally wrong? Because everybody's telling me I'm wrong. Did he say?
I think so. He actually.
I came like mid chat today and like Gamebreaker chat, like when everybody's talking like internally, and I felt like he was sort of saying like it's a very linear experience, but
He did mention something about that over the weekend, that he felt that he was having to go and do this, this, and this in that step, and he felt that was linear. I just think that I'm not sure that that's the game making you do that. I just think it's your expectations making you do that.
All right, I don't want to put Josh. I don't want to put words in Josh's mouth.
I
could be
sure,
totally
but
getting it wrong. Maybe we got to have him on the show next week and talk about it while we stomp Jesse Cox's face into the ground, into the mud. Last question of the week. This one in from Ryan Brown. Ryan says, please describe your running ability in relation to that of a centaur. Elizabeth, I'm just going to leave this one to you.
I could outrun a centaur over and over and over again. Also, it's time to do some real damage and refreshing. So
there's your answer. I'm not even passing that one around to everybody.
On my leg! On my leg!
I got that. My character was heading.
Is the outrunning a centaur thing this game's arrow to the knee?
Except for the arrow to the knee reference that there is in the game as well.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Which is awesome.
That was awesome.
Elizabeth Claire, follow her on the Twitter at Elizabeth Claire right there. It's up there. You can see it on the lower third. Of course, go to massively.com to read all of her great writing. Thank you so much for being on the show again. We missed you.
Always a pleasure.
We missed you.
I missed you too.
Richie Procopio, also from massively.com. Follow him at Richie Procopio on the Twitter. It's where all the tweens hang out, I hear these days. Twitter. Tweets. And Mr. Scott Hawks, editor-in-chief over at Gamebreaker, some sites. Took an arrow to the knee, hates Jesse Cox, and loves griefing everybody.
A guardian holic.
Trolley.
Follow him on the Twitter at Jaramore. Unfortunately, his Twitter is not I hate Jesse Cox. My name is Scott Hawks. That was the next one. Damn, I should have just pushed this one out for another like 12 minutes. We would have had 2 hours, but I didn't. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Gary Gannon. I don't hate Jesse Cox, unlike Scott Hawks. I'm a kind human being. And we do this show live every single Tuesday now at 6 PDT. If you haven't come out for the live show, please come on out, hang out with the chat room. Chat room, you guys are great. And for all your Guild Wars 2 news, and of course, all your other video game, MMORPG, esports, PC, mobile, indie, all the good stuff. Come over to Gamebreaker.tv. And I guess watch Doctor Who, according to Scott.
Yes. No,
I'll
ancient
second that.
aliens. Ancient aliens.
Jesse, we'll see you next week.